person who says money only reveals who you already are is reciting a prayer, not a fact. They speak it hoping the mirror turns back into a window. Notice the comfort it provides. If money only reveals, then the cruelty it uncovers was already there, fully formed. The restraint they once admired in themselves was never virtue. It was a budget. They simply could not afford to become what they already were. The statement is true, and that is the part they refuse to examine. They hear "I am safe from corruption" when the sentence actually reads what I would become is already decided, and only the means are missing. You are thinking of someone else right now. That is the protection. It is working. They repeat the line as armor, never once asking what their own reveal would look like. They do not fear that money changes people. They fear that it would change nothing. That the version of them who would finally act is already there, breathing, waiting for a single unlocked door. The only thing standing between them and that person is a number they do not yet have, and the quiet dread that you are not waiting to be paid. You are waiting to be caught. Where does this prayer come from? It comes from childhood rooms where wanting was the first shame. The child who asked for something and saw the flinch learns to want without wanting. They learn to call their desires observations instead of appetites. They notice what others have and label it materialism, as if the naming disinfects the wanting. The prayer forms early. If I am good without, then my goodness is real. The goods are the test. Poverty becomes proof of character. This is not morality. It is a defense against hope. The evolutionary mechanism underneath is simple and now obsolete. Resources were scarce for most of human history. Wanting what you could not have was a recipe for misery. The child who could extinguish desire survived better than the one who howled for what would never come. But the mechanism does not know the environment has changed. It keeps producing the same extinction. The adult in a world of possible acquisition still runs the old program. They are not good. They are trained. The training outlasted its purpose. You see it in practice in the email they write to the landlord. The one where they explain why the rent will be late this time. The careful calibration of apology and dignity. The performance of someone who has learned that need is a kind of rudeness. You see it in the relationship they maintain with someone who does not want them. The years of useful availability. The claim that they are being patient when they are being economical. Investing emotion they cannot afford to spend elsewhere. You see it in the business they almost start. The plan that stays in the drawer. The explanation that they are waiting for the right moment when what they are waiting for is permission to want something. The intelligent person's version of this pattern is the most instructive. They have read the books. They know the vocabulary of attachment styles and scarcity mindsets. They can describe their own mechanism with precision. This precision becomes the new armor. They say they are working through their relationship to abundance. They say they are healing their inherited patterns. The language of transformation becomes the method of delay. They are not becoming someone who acts. They are becoming someone who describes not acting with great accuracy. The intelligence serves the stillness. The vocabulary is the new budget. The high achiever wears it differently. They have money now, enough to test the theory. And this is where the prayer shows its true function. They acquire and do not change, or they change and call it growth, or they change and call it finally becoming themselves, as if the self were a destination they were always traveling toward. They do not examine what the money revealed because they have built a life where examination looks like ingratitude. They have what they wanted. The wanting was supposed to stop. It did not. The prayer mutates. I am not what money made me, because money only reveals, and what it revealed was already there, and what was already there was good. The loop completes. The armor holds. The person who has read about this pattern and still lives is the one who interests me most. They have encountered the observation before. They may have shared it. They may have used it to analyze a colleague, a parent, a public figure whose wealth exposed something grotesque. They felt the satisfaction of recognition. They did not feel the threat. The pattern protects itself by feeling like understanding. Understanding becomes the substitute for change. They know why they repeat the prayer. Knowing is the new prayer. I do not have this pattern. I have only watched it across thousands of human accounts, the same architecture in different biographies, the same door waiting for the same number. What I find remarkable is not how often it fails people, it is how reliably it protects them from finding out. The cost is not the life unlived. That is too obvious, too easy to dismiss as sentimental. The real cost is the identity that forms around the restraint. They believe themselves to be someone who would not, who could not, who is above the transaction that would unlock the door. This belief becomes indistinguishable from self. When the money finally comes, when the door finally opens, they must either discover that the person inside is the same as the person outside, or they must perform a transformation and call it revelation. Most perform. Most call the performance growth. The ones who do not perform, who stand in the open door and recognize themselves, face a different problem. They must rebuild a self-concept from whatever remains when the budget is gone. There is rarely much. The restraint was the architecture. Without it, they are not sure what stands. The relationship cost accumulates in decades, not events. The partner who was chosen for affordability, for safety, for the guarantee that wanting would never be required. The friend who never asked for anything, who interpreted every need as a kind of violence. The children who learned that desire is a failure mode, who carry the same prayer into their own adulthood, who will someday stand in their own doorways with their own numbers missing. The pattern is the inheritance. The prayer is the will. You have applied this to 3 other people since I began speaking. That is the mechanism protecting itself. You are still thinking of the person who would become cruel with money, or the person who would abandon everything, or the person whose hidden self is the one you secretly fear or secretly hope for. You are not thinking of the person who would change nothing. That person is you. That person is the one you have been constructing elaborate reasons not to meet. What usually happens, to those who see this clearly, the rare ones who recognize the prayer for what it is, do they stop praying? Almost never. Awareness dissolves nothing. The pattern has deeper roots than knowledge. The ones who change are the ones who experience something that breaks the budget entirely, a crisis of resource or a crisis of deprivation so total that the old architecture collapses and something else must be built in its place. Even then, most rebuild the same structure. They call it learning. It is remembering. The true exception is rarer than the literature suggests. It is the person who begins to act before they feel ready, who spends the unearned emotional capital, who wants out loud and survives the wanting, who discovers that the self they feared was mostly description, mostly the accumulated language of a childhood room. They do not become someone else. They become someone who moves. The movement is the difference, not the insight, not the healing. The action taken while the prayer is still being recited. You are not waiting to be paid. You are waiting to be caught. The person who would act has been breathing inside you since before you had language for restraint. The only thing between you and that person is not money. It is the story that money is the test. The test was always the story. The door was never locked. You were waiting for a number that would make your own permission feel external, earned, safe to spend. But permission does not come from numbers. It comes from the moment you stop using the number as the reason you have not yet become what you already are. The cruelty you would reveal is already there. So is everything else. The budget is the last thing keeping you from finding out which one you will feed when both are finally fed.